How did you know how to incorporate the God and kingdom into your business as you were building it out?
So, for me, I kind of already knew, especially in college, I didn't want to be, I had some bad experiences with Christians in business where it was like everything was like Christian branded. It had the fish on there and it had the Bible verses on there. It had all this stuff on there. But for me personally, I want my actions to speak louder than words. And I want people to feel the energy of the Holy Spirit. I want people to see the light and feel that when they're hanging with me and they're talking with me and when they receive stuff from me. That is the goal and desire. I shouldn't have to plaster Jesus all over the place for people to recognize it's a kingdom thing,
My guest, Alyssa Aviles, is on a mission to help leaders rediscover their God-given creativity, to help people brand with identity instead of imitation, and to walk boldly in a world where AI can never replace the spirit inside of you. The School of Influence, where legends are made and legacies are started. Interviews and insights to grow your impact on social media, networking, and stages. Class is now in session. We're gonna take on the world. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm your host, Devin Schubert, also known as the Man in Orange, and you're going to get a sneak preview into why the orange today. I'm excited for this session of the School of Influence because today's guest is a powerhouse in the creatives and in the kingdom entrepreneurial space. She's the founder of the Lovely Lyss, a creative strategist and a designer who has helped countless entrepreneurs rediscover their God-given creativity. So not only that, she's worked with some of the biggest names in the coaching and consulting world, building funnels and challenges and creative experiences that have impacted thousands of kingdom entrepreneurs worldwide. Her expertise is more than just design. She's about building environments that engage, convert, and transform while never losing the kingdom touch. She's now pouring that wisdom into an upcoming book about balancing AI and divine creativity. She's helping us all be able to navigate the world of automation without losing our original God-given spark. So whether you're trying to break through the wall of business or reignite your creativity, or even how to bring your kingdom influence into work, you're about ready to get a masterclass. Help me welcome my friend, Alyssa. All right, welcome, Alyssa. Thanks for jumping on this show with me.
I'm stoked. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting to connect with other kingdom creators. What does it look like to be a believer and still do creation of all different types? And so I want to start off right away with about creativity. So when did you first realize that creativity wasn't just a skill that you were honing in and building on, but it was actually a calling on your life?
Oh man, that's such a good question. And I love talking about this because I feel like it's not really about a lot in a lot of spiritual spaces. I grew up in a Southern Baptist school and church, and I've been in the faith streams for quite some time. And so, for me, I have always been a creative kid, but I just remember constantly hearing using your gifts as a gift to others and living in a place of worship, using it as a place of worship. And so I constantly had this reminder from, leaders and influence growing up. But to be honest, even though I heard it, I never really took it to heart. It was one of those yeah, okay, sure, I should worship the Lord and all that I do, but I never really honed into that. And so, I would say it wasn't until probably college where I was stepping more into a creative career and a creative lifestyle and a creative practice where I was like, wow, this actually is more than a gift. It really is a calling on my life to use this not only as an act of worship, but to benefit others and to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. this is such a cool thing to do and a cool thing to encourage people with. And so, it's definitely shifted over the years, but I would say, like, it really locked in for me in the college days, like, right after high school is when I was like, "Boom, like, this is a calling."
Well, pardon the interruption, but let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your story was meant to impact thousands or millions of lives, but you literally just didn't know where to start? Did you know that there's over 2.9 billion people watching social media every single day? That's literally the biggest stage in the entire world. And yet most people are completely invisible on it. Why? Because they don't know how to tell their story in a way that actually connects to other people. And that, my friends, is exactly why I created Stories to Stages. We help you craft your entire story, professionally edit your video, and then we publish it across all major platforms. Plus, I'm going to give you access to my entire storytelling bootcamp. This is over $25,000 worth of value, but right now you can get the entire thing for just $7. $7. Because this isn't just a course, this is a launching pad. We've helped people with no audience, no experience, finally share their story with confidence and to get real reach. Because your story told in the right way involves and moves people. So go to stories2stages.com and grab your $7 spot with the code of podcast1. Your story was not meant to stay silent. So let's get seen, let's get heard, let's get paid, and let's set people free. So go to stories2stages.com, grab your $7 spot, and use the code podcast1 and get yours today. Now, back to the show. I love it. So it sounds like it kind of came from a concept that we're taught and, poured into to a reality at that point of like, okay, I need to be able to do this. Like, this is not just something that I learn and, tap into, but there's something bigger to this. And
Yeah.
being able to recognize that as a whole of what does it look like to be a creative and represent the kingdom of heaven at the same time, even if we're not outwardly speaking it all the time.
Yeah. And what's so interesting too is when I was told all this stuff, a lot of it was in relation to like evangelicalism as well, not necessarily creativity. It was like, yeah, you can do worship. Like I was on the worship team, like growing up. And then, like I did color guard and I did all these things, but like oftentimes too, like when they would talk about this stuff, it was more about like spreading the gospel and sharing the gospel and using your words and using where you're at and like all this stuff. And so, it just kind of clicked for me one day where it's like, wait, but like I can use music to connect, help connect people to God. And I could use painting to like speak the Holy Spirit can speak through a painting to somebody, and like I like color guard, like I'm spinning flags, but it's still like an art form and a form of worship. So it's super fun when you get to kind of like break the norm and break the boundary of like what service or gifts to God could look like or like what worship could look like. And I feel like a lot of people don't recognize that or maybe like they've just never been taught that. I know for me, like the creative kids were the weird ones. Like I was always bullied for it, like I was constantly bullied for my creativity and being weird and like you're a little too artsy, a little too outside the box, like you're breaking the rules a little too much, all this stuff. And it but like that's where the fun is, and it's been so cool to see like when you understand God in the creative realm, it's like you can't even contain God in a box. So like, why are you upset? Creative people are like breaking boundaries and doing all these things. I know it's a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but I just like want to encourage people with that because, this was never talked about. Like when I was growing up in these spaces and like I'm constantly shocked that it's not brought up. And I see people like so burnt out all the time and so tired all the time. And I'm like, I think I know why. And I'm sure we're gonna talk about that here in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. building out that creativity and where all that comes from, how did you know how to incorporate the God and kingdom into your business as you were building it out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, for me, like I kind of already knew, especially in college, like I didn't want to be I had some bad experiences with Christians in business where it was like everything was like Christian branded. It had the fish on there and like it had the Bible verses on there. It had all this stuff on there. And for me personally, not saying that's wrong, like not saying that's wrong anyway, okay? But for me personally, like I just was like I want my actions to speak louder than words, and I want people to feel feel the energy of the Holy Spirit. I want people to like see the light and feel that like when they're hanging with me and they're talking with me and like when they receive stuff from me I my that is the goal and desire. Like I shouldn't have to like plaster Jesus all over the place for people to recognize like it's a kingdom thing. um and so for me, like I even in college before, I stepped into where I'm at now today. I know, you talked about that in my intro. Like I had just always viewed that my business was a ministry in many ways. And, growing up, I wasn't taught that. Like growing up, I did many mission trips all around the world. I've been to many really cool places, and I always viewed like ministry only as that. Like, I'm gonna have to sell everything I own. I'm gonna have to be broke for the rest of my life, and I'm gonna have to just like travel overseas to do good for God, you know? And so like it's something just kind of like pivoted and changed me, like, especially in college when I was starting this out, and I was like, no, wait, like, how cool is it that my business is a ministry? Like, I get to serve people, I get to like co-collaborate with God and co-create with God and bless people and bring the kingdom through all these different things that I'm doing. So, it was definitely a very pivotal moment in my life realizing that, because that again was also something I just honestly wasn't taught growing up in these spaces.
Yeah. One of the things that I say a lot in my Influence Academy is that we are always discipling people. It's either we're discipling people into the kingdom or we're discipling people who are in the kingdom. Either way, we're always doing it and we don't always need to do it with words. And a lot of times it's those actions, it's the character, it's the integrity that people are watching no matter what. And that's what true influence is about. Is it's not always just the words that you say, 7% of the things that people gather from you is only from the words. Everything else is your body posture and your facial expressions, all those things. And so we get to recognize that it's the same thing in the kingdom. People are going to watch who you are, what you do, who you hang around, the mistakes that you make, and how you handle those as well. And so as you've seen your business grow and you've worked with other business owners, why do you feel like entrepreneurs stop creating when business seems to get hard?
Such a good question. It's so good. And, and I've encountered this so many times too. And I realize in my moments of burnout and my moments of like high anxiety and high stress, it's because I'm not doing anything creative. It's because like I'm not playing, I'm not taking the time to invest in myself, I'm not taking time to step into that creative flow and that creative energy. And there is science to back this up that like there's a lot of ties between mental health and creativity as well. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, they can lose focus easily, depending on, of course, like whatever is going on in their lives. It could be like a financial thing, it could be a health thing. Majority of the time it is financial, but it could be health, it could be a societal thing, it could be a political thing. Like there's so many different things that can impact entrepreneurs' lives. And in those moments, the last thing that people think of is like, well, I need to be creative to get the creative juices flowing. And oftentimes it's like, we need creative problem solving to get out of these situations. So like oftentimes, like when you are in these tough situations, like you need creativity to be able to problem solve and get out of it and get into that next step. So, oftentimes like when people are also feeling really stuck, it is tied to their emotional well-being, their mental health. They could lose like focus. They could feel out of alignment. They can feel like they're not being authentic. That's a really big one that ties into, branding and identity and all that sort of things. People can feel like they're out of their purpose. And so that's why we're seeing such an I'm seeing such an epidemic of this like today, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about AI, but I'm seeing this a lot where like people are just they're sad and they're depressed and they don't know what to do and they're feeling really stuck. And I'm like, man, like we need to take the time to tap in the creativity. Like ultimately, and okay, I'm going like a little rant here. So like yeah, like I always find it fascinating. I'm like, the Bible literally starts with in the beginning, God created, right? And like that is like one of the first characteristics that we see of God. And I'm like, how cool is that? And it just kind of often gets pushed to the sidelines a little bit, and we see like topics of creativity happen a lot in the Old Testament. And I'm like, okay, so it's set there in stone, like it's written in there for us to like remember, but like we just like so often forget that we're born creative. Like it is literally woven into our DNA, right? Like if we really believe that God has put us here on this earth for a purpose, like we're all born creative. You really have to believe that. And so for a lot of people, they just don't believe that. They kind of associate creativity only for being for certain people. It's only for people that can do arts and crafts and photography and drawing and dancing and singing. And like they only see it that way. But I'm like, no, you're creative too. Like you have so many gifts. Creativity can look in a different way. And we can talk about maybe in a bit like how to tap into that and how to really step into that creativity. But you know I love reading stuff from Kingdom people, but of course I learn a lot of stuff from non-Kingdom people too. And one of my favorite books is by Rick Rubin. It's called The Creative Act. And the way that he describes creativity is this like energy. It's a generative energy that flows through all living things and is accessible to everyone. And I'm like, well, that's God. God in the universe, right? Like it's always expanding, it's always creating. Like so that like he's describing it in this way. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course, that makes sense that it would be this overflowing energy that you could just like step into and you can tap into. And he explains it almost like a river, like that you can live off of and you can live by and you can like feel refreshed by and feel calm by. And I'm just like, that is God. Like I just think that's so cool. So it's kind of neat, like seeing I am seeing other like creatives, even in non-faith spaces. They're so close to getting it, they're close to getting it. But it's super cool. It's super fun. Like just like remembering that you have full access to this. Like it's not just for the select few.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I know, a lot of times for me, I'll go, most of the day doing some coaching calls, group calls, things like that. And at the end of the day, like I'm so happy to just open up Canva and to just start creating things because it's a different part of me. Like it's not just communicating, it's like, okay, I gotta be creative. So what are some
Mhm.
ways that you're creative or things that you do for business wise that helps bring that out?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you mentioned Canva because this is a resource and tool that I will always encourage people to do. And if you guys have never heard of Canva for whatever reason, it is like one of the largest leading online graphic design softwares that makes design accessible for everybody. That is actually one of their core values. I'm an ambassador for them. I love them. Amazing company through and through. Woman founded. Like I love them. $1 billion company, like it's crazy. So, anyways, that's a great way to be creative is, designing your own things. And for a while, when I first stepped into this space, even using a tool like Canva, a lot of professional designers were like, "How dare you?" Like, yeah, because it could take away business from them, right? But then what I realized was like, oh man, if I can encourage people to do their own designs, like in the beginning when you're first starting out you're getting in that creative like you said, you feel more creative when you get to go in there and you get to play. And play is the core thing. So this is what I'm going to encourage you guys with, because as we get older, we are taught not to play. Like when we're kids and we're in kindergarten and we're in elementary school, they always have recess for a reason, right? I mean, of course, probably get the energy out of us and get us ready for nap time or whatever. But like also like they want us to play and to imagine and to create with other kids and to have fun. And then, of course, like we hit middle school and it's like, oh, you don't need that. You know, maybe you'll have an art class if you want, but like it's kind of like an elective thing, you know. And then you go to high school and it's like at that point, you know, maybe you have an art class again, but and then you go to college and it's like that's it. Like as you get older, you are discouraged to be creative. Like you're discouraged to go buy a Lego set and like build, you know, or like go get a puzzle or like go treat yourself with like an art kit or a doodle kit. And so, you know, I know a lot of people are now kind of pushing the societal norms and encouraging people like, hey, like you have to step back into this. Like you have to like take the time to like really do this. So all that to say, like play is a really big thing. I would encourage you guys to play. And one of my favorite books, it's called The Artist Way. I recommend this to everybody. I would like, there's the Bible for me, and then there's The Artist Way. That's my next book that I tell every single person to read. It's sold like over 5 million copies. She's a Kingdom creative, and one of the things that she recommends for people, she has like 2 tools in her toolkit that she tells everybody to do. The first one, many of you guys have probably already heard of. It's called morning pages. You wake up, you get, you know, 3 pieces of paper out or a journal or whatever, and you just brain dump whatever is in your mind. You brain dump it. It doesn't matter if you're feeling awful that day. It doesn't matter if you're feeling amazing that day. You get everything out on that paper. You can put in prayers. You could put in affirmations. You could put in like whatever's in your mind, your heart, whatever. You just get it out from your head onto a physical piece of paper. Like don't do an iPad or anything. Get it on a physical piece of paper. And the goal of this is like you fill up the journal, you get it out, and you toss it. You don't look at it again. It's just to get it out. And you're going to notice like it's crazy. The days that I do this versus the days that I don't do it, I feel massive difference. The other thing, and this is going back to the play concept, is it's something called an artist date, taking yourself out on an artist date. And that is 2 hours of intentional time where you go and play and you are healing your inner artist, your inner, you know, child artist. And so you have to figure out what that looks like for you. For some of my friends, it is going to a museum. And you do this by yourself, which I know is really hard, especially like if you have children. See if you get a babysitter or family or friend, a loved one to like watch the kiddos. But you do this by yourself. It's not with a spouse, not with a friend. Like you go and do this on your own and you spend time with God and really investing in you. So going to museums, you could go sit at a park for a while. There are studies that show being in nature helps you become more creative and helps you problem solve the more you get out in nature. You can do an art class. You can go to Michael's and pick up a little paint kit or like a diorama to build. Lego. Go get yourself a Lego set and then go build it and have fun. You know, like it's just a matter of weekly getting into this practice of like, let me disconnect and let me play again and be a child again and not have shame to do that either. You know, so that would be, those are like, you know, the biggest key things that I would encourage people to do to step back into that creativity.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And it sounds like creativity, all of this stems from your identity, you know, where you're coming from, who you are. How would you say that you help people find that identity? Like we're going to talk about branding, how you can't have branding if you don't know yourself. How do you start that simple process?
Yeah, that's great. So this is always like the first step to when I'm walking people through branding. And it's so funny because in college, when I was learning this stuff, you always started branding with thinking about the customer and thinking about like who you're going to serve and the audience that you're going after. And what I realized, I had a crazy like kingdom revelation through a very non-kingdom way. It's very controversial, so I'm not going to talk about it. Talk my book. And I had heard this like quote from somebody, And I was like, "Man, like, why does this sound so familiar?" And what I realized was this quote was kind of like a spin on, like the two greatest commandments, like love the Lord, your God with all your heart, mind, soul, right? And then, like love your neighbor as yourself. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just because like growing up, like yeah, at least in my circles growing up, you were taught like focusing on yourself was selfish, right? And like you're being really prideful. And so like I ended up that this is gonna get a little deep. I ended up, like, really hating myself, like, really, like, always feeling broken, always feeling like, I could never be good enough for God, always feeling like I'm always gonna fail. A lot of this comes from religious trauma. I shouldn't even say spiritual, religious trauma. And so, like, I never really took the time, like, I would always glaze over that, like, Bible verse, and then all of a sudden it hit me, and I was like, "Oh, man, like, if I can't love who God ha has created me to be, how am I gonna love my neighbors in a greater capacity?" Ooh, right?
So
Like, dang. And so that made me realize, oh my gosh, branding doesn't start with serving others. It actually starts with discovering who you are and stepping into your identity. It gives me goosebumps like when I talk about that because it's so cool and so I've been doing this for years now. I've been doing this for years now, like making that the first step of my framework. And I'll walk you guys through a very simple framework. But now I always start with encouraging people to discover who they are. And what that means is, it's not just figuring out like I like dogs and I like plants and I like coffee. Like it's not just like the really shallow, like superficial surface things. It goes a lot deeper with, okay, well, not only like what are your strengths, I don't like to say weaknesses. I like to say like what are your differences, like what makes you different than somebody else. I really like to spend time and highlight that stuff. I also encourage people to like do personality tests because sometimes like you don't realize stuff until like you take a quiz and then you're like, oh wait, that is me. Well, like sometimes like you need a little bit more like revealing in that stuff. So that they have like Myers Briggs is a very popular personality sort of test. I always encourage people to do that. I'm an INFJ, chronic introvert. The Colby Index is another really good one. That one is a lot more career focused, but I found that one also really super beneficial to see like um what type of person am I? Like do I like to take action quickly? Am I an implementing type of person? Um that one has some pretty good details there. I know Enneagram can be kind of controversial too in faith spaces. I love it. And so, like, I'm a type 2, like, helper. I love helping everybody. And so, like, I've taken time to kinda, like, go through those and see, like, okay, like, this actually makes a lot of sense to, like, who I am and why I do the things I do and why I probably have more people-pleasing tendencies and, like, why I do this. And so, I would encourage you to take the time to really sit and get to know yourself and don't feel guilty about it. Like
mhm.
it's not prideful going and taking a look at who God's created you to be and how you love people and how you respond to people and how you can serve people when like the focus I what I would encourage people with is like get to know yourself and get to love yourself, but do it through the lens of like who God has created you to be and how God sees you and how heaven sees you. That's a big one. Like who does heaven say that you are? And then take that and apply it to, what's next and how to step in that authority and all that jazz. So yeah, I do this a fun one.
I think that we learn to focus on ourselves with those, those tests and those assessments. And then it's also important that we learn how we interact with other people. So this is very good for teams to be like, you know what? I'm this type of person, so I receive best this way. I interact best this way. And so it's good, yes, for yourself, and it's good for the entire body. It's good for your team. It's good for your spouse. It's good for your kids to all understand this is how and the way that I tick. And so let's be able to help be able to formulate a way to be able to communicate effectively.
I love that you just brought that up because, I feel like this is what I've been working with Pedro Deo for the last several years, and this is something that's so truly special about the team that works there. I know they say you shouldn't like treat your coworkers like family. No, I'm sure you've heard that, like, feel like they're not your family, they're just friends. Like, I've seen so many places on LinkedIn, and, like, that hasn't been true here. This is truly, like, one of the different work environments that I've been in, and a big part of it is that we understand each other's personalities at such a deep level. We know how to work with one another. So there's another person on the team who I'm very close with. She's also an Enneagram type 2. So she loves helping other people. She will always put other people in front of her own needs. And so like I know like oh, I'm the same way. So I know how to talk to her. I know how to encourage her. I know how to be like, hey, I'm sucking at checking in on myself and taking care of myself. Are you taking care of yourself? And so I love that you brought up the team thing because this is super valuable for teams, super valuable if like you're serving on a church. I think that this would be very beneficial for like as you're serving other people with other people to like know how people function and what takes them off and what encourages them and how to lift people up. I think that's a big thing is that
Yeah.
sometimes we're in a culture of calling out too much and not calling up as much. And I really believe like understanding these things helps us kind of shift into that place of like encouraging and empowering others.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And it's also important in this, when we're focused on this identity, as far as it comes to branding, how can you expect somebody to want to invest into you if you don't know who you are?
Mhm.
They're not buying necessarily just your products. They're especially in the coaching realm and things like that. They're buying you. They want to be close to you. They want access. But if you don't know who you are, can you expect anybody else to have clarity as to who you are? It's a very important thing that we all need to be able to do. All right, so we got identity. That's a first part. What else?
All right. So my three-step branding framework goes like this. And I used to have a longer branding framework and then I sat for a little bit and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it really is just like 3 simple steps." So I recently spoke on stage somewhere and my topic was how to be human in a world of AI. I'm actually writing a book right now. It's called Create a Better Brand and it's all about authenticity and standing out in this era. Like I hate to say it guys, but this is the world that we are in now. And it is growing fast. It is getting wild out there lots of good, lots of bad. And so, when I was encouraging people like how to be human, how to stand out, like I was taking a look at my branding framework and I'm like, okay, the first part for sure is identity. But then, how do I make this easy for people? I feel like that's one of my gifts is I love taking complex things and making them simple. And so here are the 3 steps. 3 steps are identity, and then you've got story, and then you've got style. You have to have that first piece. So we just talked about identity. Now the next piece is story. And this is a really big one. There's an amazing book. I want to make sure I give you guys resources too. So there's an amazing book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I use this as like the base for a lot of what I do. And, like when we think about us growing up, even as kids, like we loved listening to stories, like our parents would read us bedtime stories. And I mean, I know kids nowadays, it's a lot different. They have like, YouTube and entertainment and all these things, but it's still storytelling. At the end of the day, it's storytelling, right? And so we are always in this like culture of story. Even when you look historically at stuff, you see like cavemen, they told stories through paintings on the caves. And then you look at the Egyptians and they use hieroglyphics to tell stories. And like, I think that's why we love, like, when you go to museums and you see these art pieces, you see these things, like, really what it is at the end of the day is they were telling the story of that time. And it's cool that we can get to see that centuries and decades later. And so story is a really crucial and important thing that moves all of us. And so when I talk about branding, of course you figure out like who you are. Then the next thing is the story that you're going to tell. And not only the story that you're going to tell, but also like a story that is going to resonate for the people that you want to serve. And so, this is where you can get a little bit deeper with getting to know your audience and figuring out the story that they're living through. Like, what are their lives looking like? And how can you tie what they're experiencing with your breakthrough? How can you tell a story that is going to help them get out of that place? So, story is a really big one. I love talking about that. We can spend a whole episode talking about how story. I highly recommend reading that book. I don't want to give away the framework there, but just read that and, sit on that for a little bit. And then the third step of the framework is style. And this is always the fun one. So we've got identity, story, and style. And people love the style part because this is the more expressive, creative part. So, like, you right now have your orange blazer on, your orange jacket, which I love. That's a brand piece right there. So, like, I've seen you in so many photos. You always have that on, right? Like, for me, like, you notice when I hopped on the call, I got my hat on, right? So, like, it's so funny. I'll go to events and people will be like, "Oh, I knew it was you because he has a hat on." But if I don't have the hat on, like, they don't recognize me. I feel like Superman sometimes, where it's like Clark Kent and Superman, he takes off the glasses and all of a sudden it's like, what? Uh, and so, like, that's me with the hat. But anyways, style is the fun one because that is where you get to express who you are and you get to kind of share a little bit more of your story through visuals. And that could be colors, it could be typography, it could be apparel and accessories. It could be being known for certain things and being associated with those things. And maybe we can have a little bit more fun, like talking about this because everyone loves this part. They're always like they just want to skip the whole framework and get right into style, because that's when you get to play.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
before I keep, do you have any questions?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, we can dive into the different branding things. I want to show you, like, you and I are just kind of connecting for the first couple of times. So
Mm,
what you've laid out, I want to show you exactly. This is exactly what God did with me. So the identity, I went through a near death experience with one of my children. I was given 3 months left to live. Jesus came and miraculously healed me. Over 4 months, I regained my identity by spending one-on-one time with God through that entire time. I knew
mm,
exactly who I was. He gave me a new name, and from that, I began, diving into what I'm doing now, which is helping 1,000,000 people share their stories across media. And
mm,
all of that is because God told me the reason why he wanted me to stay here was because I have a story to tell. And I'm going to take the 99 people, because I left the 99 to save the one. I'm going to take the 99 to the nations with me to share their stories because the power is in the story. And all of that brought together made me bring out the orange. And people are like, "Oh, tell me about the orange. There's got to be such a great story about the orange." And I love telling stories and all these things. And this is my story. I went to high school and my colors were orange and I liked it.
I love it.
But like as you were saying these things, and I've never heard you, talk about these, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what God did to me. I had
Mm,
to know my identity in order to know what my story is because I didn't know how to be able to branch anything out if I don't know where the starting spot is. And then once I branched it out, now it's like, okay, now that the world gets a chance to see me, who do I want to represent? And a lot of times branding, people get this first image that it's about a logo, it's about the colors, it's about what you wear. But for me, it's like, who do they remember me as? And most people, when they remember, they see the orange. I can tell you the amount of pictures I get of orange stuff all day, every week. Things mailed to me that's orange. But this is what I constantly say. I remember how you made me feel. And to me,
mhm.
that is like the heart of like, yes, I was able to release my identity through my story, through my brand to transform somebody else's life.
So good. You nailed it. Because so many people, like you said, so many people will think of branding and they'll think about the logo and they'll think about like the website or the business cards. And, we see a lot of hot topics with like rebrands and stuff like that. But it's important to recognize that, when I teach branding, I love to encourage people. Branding is like the intersect of who you are and like what you do. And your brand kind of stands in the middle of that. And really what it's all about is identity and feelings and how other people feel around you, feel about you. And like we said before, right? It really starts at a place of identity. And so I you nailed it. Like you nailed it. As you were talking about this, I was like, yes, this is so good. And I love to see how like the Lord has done that in your life. And that's actually really encouraging to me and confirming to me as well. So like thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so stoked for you. And like I don't know like if you notice, but like orange is the color of creativity. So, like that's why like Etsy, their logo is orange, right? The creative marketplace. And so I think it's super fitting for you, and it looks good on you. Orange is definitely your color for sure. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, give us a brief synopsis of kind of the branding and like some colors and things like that that people can look at. I know branding colors are important as well, like you just started
And
talking about.
yeah, so, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that people send you, like, things with orange, and so association is a really big thing with branding. So, oftentimes when people are in this process, they're like, "Well, I don't know what color to go with. I don't know, like, what direction to do," and more often than not, when I'm meeting with people, they're either actually wearing their brand color or they have a lot of the brand color in their background. And so, like, I'll just kind of take a look at them and be like, "Do you like blue?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, I love blue." And then, like, meanwhile, they're wearing blue and they have, like, like, blue all over. And so oftentimes, like, start with, like, looking at, like, what you actually have in your environments now, because subconsciously, you probably just got this stuff because you really like it, and, like, it actually would probably do really well with your brand. I always encourage people, so my resources for this are gonna be Pinterest is a big one, that's where I do majority of my research. And so, I when I'm working with clients on branding, we'll kind of create a Google document and we'll go through the process of like identity and story, figuring out your audience. And a big part of finding out about your audience is seeing where they spend their money and like where are they shopping, who are they following, what books are they getting, what sort of items are they buying. And what we do is we look at those brands and we try to see if there's like a common theme in those brands. So, I always like to use this example with people because it just kind of makes it a little bit easier. So somebody who is very holistic, they love being out in nature, they eat organically. They're the type of person that is probably going to be shopping at Whole Foods or maybe even Sprouts, maybe even Trader Joe's. And then they probably buy hiking gear at REI or at, North Face, Columbia, like Patagonia, those sort of places. And they are probably more likely to support local and like, go to local coffee shops, local small businesses. And so when I look at a person like that, I'm like, okay, the places that they're purchasing from are very organic. They're very earthy tones, very earthy feelings. They've got a chill, laid back energy to them. They're very conscious about environment and climate. They really care about like going back to the foundations of things. They're very holistic, very natural. So a person like that is probably going to be drawn more to the earthy tones, earthy palettes, like maybe a little bit more muted of a palette compared to a person like me where like I love all things Apple. They're very colorful, very clean, very sleek, stunning design, like I love Apple. Target is another big one that I've loved their past campaigns and their things. I know they're in a little rough patch right now, but like a lot of times when you would see Target campaigns, you knew it was Target off the bat because they were very colorful, expressive, very inclusive ads. Like you knew without seeing the bullseye, you knew like, oh, that was a Target ad, right? And what's fascinating about them is that their palette is very clean. It's just black, red, and white, but they would use images and all this stuff to bring in color, very similar to what Apple does, right? Their palette's very simple, but they use images and the products. They focus on the product. And so I love brands like that. So a person who is very, very earthy, hippie, right? It's totally different than like a very modern, techie, clean sort of vibe. So you got to find out like, what you like, what your people like, and kind of look at the patterns, look at the similarities, And that's also a really good starting point. And then go into a place like Pinterest and type in those keywords of, you know, earthy color palettes, luxury color palettes, financial color palettes, health color palette. Like put in keywords and you'll find thousands of different designs and palettes and inspiration that you can start from. And then I always encourage people just to kind of go through those and see which ones kind of really stand out to you and start putting them in a Pinterest board. And if any of you guys aren't familiar with Pinterest, it is like the digital version of having like a cork board, you know, with like all these like if you were pretend you were to like clip out all these like magazine things and you have like a cork board full of one thing and then a vision board of another. Like Pinterest is like a digital version of that. So you can create your own board and I stick all the things that you love in that board. Then once you've done that for at least an hour, then I would go to that board and I would start taking things out that maybe don't feel right. Cause you'll know. You'll like I promise you'll know when you look at it, you'll be like, okay, this feels off now. So take that out. This feels off. Take that out. And you'll eventually get to a point where you're like, okay, I really like these colors and I really like this style. And then you just have to kind of figure out the other pieces. But that's a really good place to start off with. And but like I said, like you mightn't actually be like wearing the color that is supposed to be your brand color, like Devin has his.
Those are great tips, and even just the beginnings places to be able to start. And I want
Mhm.
to talk to the listener here for a second of make sure that the identity part is figured out because I've
Mhm.
worked with so many people that want to go with a hot pink and they're not loud, they're not bold, they're very quiet and shy. And okay, where did that come from? Well, I saw this person do it. I want to be like them. But you're not them, so let's focus on you. And so the identity part is so important when you get to this part because God created you uniquely and creatively made for you, not other people. And so if people are struggling with that, when you see them starting to put this branding and colors and things like that together, how do you address that? How do you help them with that?
That's so good. So I actually really love that you brought that up because I have seen that happen with a few people. Like I just had a meeting earlier this week with somebody. He was telling me all about this like project that they're working on, and in my head I'm like, okay, like they're kind of going in Apple direction, like very clean, very colorful. He's like, yeah, I started putting together the palette, and so then I took a look at it, and it was totally different than what I like he was describing to me and and showing me. It was a very muted palette, and I was like, "Hey, this is very, very, it's not an awful palette." Like, I try not to, like, go out of the box like this lets like, I like, it's not an awful palette, but, like, it's a lot more calm and tame than I was anticipating. And so, he had described to me, like, why they went that direction. I was like, "Oh, I don't know." I feel like oftentimes just tweaking things just a tad bit can make all the difference in the world. But anyways, so, I had to be upfront and be like, the emotion and feelings that you're conveying with this are not in alignment with what like who you are and what you're trying to do. And a lot of that comes down to, I encourage people to research. This is why I like, even look at the places you shop from, the brands you shop from and whatnot. But I've had the same thing too where people come to me and they're like, I love this person's colors, I love these things. I'm like, well, I like you're not that person. Like you said, like, you're not that person, you're not there yet, and that's not to say you can't have that in the future, right? Like, I think that's another big piece is, like, I at least in my experience, I feel like our identity can change over time, like, it can shift over time, like, we can be stepping into new seasons, into new places, and the Lord can be highlighting new things to us and developing us, like, I feel like I'm in a whole new character season right now in my life where I'm like, "All right, Lord, like, this is interesting, but okay, let's go," like, in a whole new growth season, and so, it's not to say that you can't step into those colors and those things in the future, but you really have to figure out like what is the story that you are meant and called to tell now, and then figure out the colors and the feelings that can be with that. And then a big thing too is like because like we're talking about faith and everything. I don't want to sound cliche and be like, just pray about it. But pray about it. Yeah, like there's really no other way to say it. It's so fun because honestly, you never know. And like if you're having trouble too, this is my other encouragement. Maybe ask a friend to also like invite a friend to also pray for you about it. Like if you have prophetic friends, you could even ask them to like pray about it and whatnot. And they could probably, like let you know what they're seeing from the Lord. But this is a really fun one for me. So a few months ago, I was working with a consulting client that Pedro had, and she had been doing her own designs and stuff like that. And so she handed it over to me. She had these like navy and this gold, and she helps faith-based women lose weight naturally. So like, no GLP-1s, no diet pills, like, no starving yourself, no whatever. Like it's biblically based like information, and she has like amazing results and testimonials, right? And so and she has this like very like bubbly personality. So like when I saw her stuff at first, I was like, this is really good. It's got the navy and the gold, so it kind of feels a little more high end. Blues are very trusting, but I felt like it was missing. Anytime you're designing a color palette, you always want that contrast color. So for you, the orange is very contrast. It's very bold. It's very like it speaks out, right? And I don't know like what your other colors are if you're using like black and whites or like orange goes well, like blues. Oh, perfect. Okay. I love blue and orange. That like I do that a lot. And so for her, I was like, she's just missing that contrast color. And so, I started kind of building out her funnel, and I was kind of going with greens first because blues and greens go really well together. Greens are very trusting. They also represent growth. They can also represent financial stuff, all that sort of jazz. And as I was praying about it, the Lord was showing me a hot pink. And I was like, I don't know about that, but maybe. And so at this point, when I was working with her, she can help both men and women. And so her challenge, she was going to open it up to both men and women. But I was like, men are not going to be attracted to the hot pink. They're going to be turned off by that. So like, maybe we want to stick with the green. So I put the green in. I'm still not feeling it. So I keep seeing this like hot pink. And so I'm like, all right, Lord, let me just like talk with her. So I call her up and I'm like, hey, like, are you dead set on your challenge being for like men and women? And she's like, no, like it doesn't have to be. Like I'm totally open to like, just doing one or the other. And I was like, okay, like I keep seeing this hot pink color. And it's not something I would typically do with like a navy and a gold, because navy and gold can be very luxury. And then you throw in like a vibrant hot pink, like, it's like Barbie hot pink, and so I'm like, I keep seeing this color. I think it can work. I don't know. And so all of a sudden she like starts tearing up and she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, I've got goosebumps right now. She's like, I had a movement a few like years ago for women. It was called the pink pants movement, where she felt more confident wearing these hot pink like leggings to the gym. Like she used to wear black leggings to the gym all the time, but then the Lord told her to step into a new place. And so she got these very vibrant, like hot pink leggings. And if any of you ladies are listening, you know how it is like going to the gym. It can be very intimidating. And like a lot of times, like you don't want to like show off, whatever. But so she got that. And then she started feeling more confident about it. So then she started encouraging other women to do it. And she created this pink pants movement. I had no idea about this. I did not look into her. I didn't stalk her. I didn't do any of that stuff. And so we ended up pulling the hot pink into her brand. But like that whole thing was from prayer and really like asking the Lord, like, hey, like, and guys, like, oh, I'm so excited about this. Like this is why I'm encouraging you guys to like play and be creative, because when you do step into that flow of just like who God is and that energy of who God is, like the more you step into it, the more things like this are going to happen in your life naturally. So, I'm going to encourage you to like get back in the art of playing. Ask your friends as well to like pray over this for you as you're building it out and you don't have that clear thing. But yeah, ask God, like, hey, like what is it? Like, what color do you want me to use like for this, and see what happens? Like, you never know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I love that. I love that so much. And I think that, that brings in, such a hot topic right now of the creativity, of identity, of praying about these things, and the whole thing with AI.
Mhm.
A lot of people I hear are saying, well, it takes away from all of that stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
and other people are like, no, it enhances it. So tell us a little bit about your experience with AI and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, this is a big topic. I feel like we could do a whole podcast on just AI. Like when I was giving that presentation a few months back on branding like a human, I shared a meme of Sarah Connor from Terminator. If any of you guys like grew up watching like classic movies like me, I'm like, man, Sarah Connor's so disappointed in us right now because like we're just like living, with AI and trusting AI with our lives. And so, like it is for me at first, I was really intimidated about it, which is kind of funny because, like, when I look back, it was the same way with me and Canva. I was really intimidated about the fact that Canva could kill the graphic design industry and, like, take away my business, which spoiler alert, it's only made business better. It's only helped my clients more. And so, you know, um, there is good with AI, there's bad with AI, and I truly believe there's gotta be a balance between it. So, what I write about in my book is there has to be a balance between God-given creativity and AI being used to help make our lives more efficient so we have more time to play and we have more time to be creative. That is actually, like, my goal and my hope and what I would love to see with AI. I do get a bit discouraged sometimes because I see people, like, fully giving their creativity to AI and like they're like, "Oh, well, I don't have to use Canva anymore. I'll just use ChatGPT to like make me 50 different ads." Well, like, sure, you can do that and makes things more efficient, but like also like if you give it the wrong prompt, like you actually might waste more time trying to get AI to do something versus you doing it within 2 minutes. You know, but like I there's that recent, like, MIT study that came out with, like, the results of, like, AI and how it's kinda made people a little bit lazier, and, Dr. Daniel, Amen, I love him. If you don't know him, look him up. He did a really good podcast recently on Diary of a CEO on YouTube. They talked about, like, the brain and AI today, and that he talked about this and about, like, how it is kind of taking away from creativity, like, people are relying on it too much. So, and then of course there's the topics of how the AI is trained. It is technically stealing from artists, in many ways. Like, there's been people I've done AI art before in the past, and, like, I'll see, like, a watermark, like, and I'm like, "Oh, no," like, it took it from something else. So, there's a lot of controversy with it too. Like, I do wanna acknowledge that stuff, right? But I do feel like as it's rapidly growing, it's rapidly changing, my hope and my prayer with it is that it can help enhance our lives so we have more time to live and not stress out as much with paying our bills and work stuff. And I know it is killing the job market in some spaces. Like this is the tough thing is like AI brings this like new duality into life where it's like it's killing the job market, but it's also enhancing the job market. And like it's killing creativity for some people, but it's also enhancing creativity for some people. So my encouragement for a lot of people recently has been don't be afraid of it. It is not going away. I hate to say it, spoiler alert, it's not going away. It's here to stay. I don't know if it's going to get to Terminator level of, of design. Um, but don't be afraid to test it out and to play with it, but also don't heavily rely on it for every little thing that you're doing because it removes I was on a call the other day actually with a coaching program when they were talking all about energy and why now we're kind of seeing a lot of people that went all in on AI, things aren't working for them. And it's because AI removed the energy out. Creativity, you're stepping into an energetic flow with the Lord, right? And so like you're stepping into that energy, you're using energy, you're giving life to it. AI is never going to have your soul, it's never gonna have that same energy, it's never gonna have that same authenticity. Sure, it could replicate many things, but it's never gonna, like, actually replace who you are and, like, your heart and your soul and who God has designed and made you to be. So, there's gotta be this balance of it. And that's my biggest encouragement to you guys is like, don't I know people that like they are constantly talking to ChatGPT on their phone like it's their best friend. And I'm like, don't do that. Well, like you're doing yourself a disservice doing that. Um so yeah, I think that's like a good I feel like a good little synopsis of how I have
No, that's great. And you got a book that you're publishing, right? And it's gonna be coming out before too long. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my book is called Create a Better Brand, and it's how to stand out in the world of AI, how to be authentic in the world of AI. And this is actually a challenge that I ran years ago. And I had designed it as a 10-day branding challenge where you could create your own personal brand within 10 days and launch it. People loved it. And I just never really did anything with it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I got to turn this into a book. And so I started kind of writing it. I actually wrote it earlier this year in hopes of getting it out for Funnel Hacking Live. And that did not work out, which ended up being a blessing. It actually ended up being a blessing that I didn't release it because so many things have even changed in the last few months. And originally I didn't even have AI as a topic in this book. And then the Lord was like, no, you need to talk about this. Like, this is a big thing because what's happening is AI is pros and cons again, right? AI is it is helping certain people stand out more because now people can really tell when things are authentic versus fake.
Mm.
And so there's like a yeah. So for example, I follow a lot. I got to be careful how I say a lot of this stuff. I follow a lot of people in the marketing space that they are just posting all this AI content daily, like all the time. And I know it's AI because of like the language and how it's talked. And like I get frustrated with it. And so, there's a really big marketer who's doing all this AI stuff now, really getting into it, like cloning his voice, cloning his image, like all this stuff into AI. And I won't forget like seeing one of the comments one day where a person was like, "Is this actually you or is this the AI version of you?" And I was like, I never want a person to question if they're talking to me, if they're talking to an AI version of me. This is just my personal opinion, right? But for me, I think that's a big thing with authenticity. I think we're entering an era right now where anybody can do anything with AI and get anything out. I think that's actually why we're seeing a shift in the marketplace. Conversions aren't as good as they used to be because like now anybody could go to ChatGPT, type in something, become an expert in 5 minutes using stuff that isn't even their own content compared to when you share your story, you share your experience, you share your breakthrough. So I actually really believe that the people who have been playing the long game of branding, who have been sharing their stories and sharing what they're doing and sharing what God is teaching them and sharing their life and sharing all this stuff, I actually think that you're going to have way more of a benefit as we're stepping into this thing because what I'm seeing is more people are using AI for a quick buck versus longevity and authenticity and really, like serving people from a place with heart versus just um coded response.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. I love it. I love it. And I'm totally on the same path with that. I said at the very beginning that in 2 to 5 years, the end thing that people are going to be looking for is authenticity. Like, okay,
Mhm.
where's the authentic ones that know what they're talking about rather than just a computer talking. So I completely agree with that. This has been an awesome conversation. We could go on for hours, I'm sure. And it's been so good. So let the listeners know how can they find you? Where's some places where you're at that they can check you out?
Thanks. So I go by the Lovely Lyss. My name is Alyssa, but my friends call me Lyss. And in high school and even with my clients, they kept on being like, "Oh, you got to meet my friend, the Lovely Lyss." So that is my username. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on TikTok. Those are probably my two primary places. I post on Instagram every so often, but it's more personal life stuff. And then I am going to start posting more on YouTube and sharing some tutorials and things like that. I have my own community called Higher Calling Creative Club where I teach people how to take their God-given gifts and turn it into businesses and create income from it. I teach Canva and ClickFunnels. I like to make things easy and I like to encourage people to like do this stuff. So You can find me in any one of those spaces. And then I also have my website too, lovelylyss.com.
Yeah, I love it. We'll have all those links in the comments down below. Alyssa, this has been great. What's one thing that you want to leave the listeners with today?
Take some time to play today.
Mm.
So take some time to go have fun. Go sit outside by yourself, even if it's like, it doesn't need to be 2 hours. But like, even if it's just like for 10 minutes, put your phone away and go sit outside and just take time to like sit and imagine and play. Or go to Barnes & Noble. If you have a Barnes & Noble by you, go to Barnes & Noble. Go look at all the books. Go look at, the Legos or the records, or like do something that is fun for you again, that brings you a little bit of excitement. Like don't be afraid to play. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and start doodling or drawing or writing. Like today, I want you guys to do it today. Today, take some time to play.
I love it. I love it. So there you have it. You have your action plan to be able to take from here. So for those of you listening and watching, just remember that your creativity isn't optional. It's a part of your calling. Your branding is not just your decoration. It's really your identity. And AI is not your voice. It's just a tool that you get to use. And so Alyssa showed us all these different ways to move in our creativity, to grow in our kingdom identity. And we really need to keep it rooted in who God called us to be. So make sure you check out her upcoming book that's coming out. Check out all of her influential social media plays, and make sure that wherever you're at, that your voice is always being heard, because that is one of the most important parts of your brand that you can utilize. So for today, school is dismissed, but your influence never takes a day off. So stay bold, stay focused, and go and leave your legacy. Bye.